Our reading today is taken from the Rays of the One Light, Weekly Commentaries on the Bible and the Bhagavad Gita by Swami Kriyananda. Truth is one and eternal. Realize oneness with it in your deathless self within. The following commentary is based on the teachings of Paramahansa Yogananda. We live in an age when people assume that knowledge should be available equally to all. In matters susceptible of judgment by normal common sense, however, everyone knows there are exceptions. Access to a control room for intercontinental missiles is limited by universal consent to a very few. Access to the controls of a passenger airliner is limited to those with the necessary knowledge for operating them, and also to those with the proper authorization. If people don't see the disadvantages of making more subtle knowledge universally available, it is only because they are ignorant of the risks involved. In the case of subtle knowledge, the main disadvantage in making it universally available is the harm it might do to one who isn't ready for it, and who might even mock it. True, by mocking truth, he might undermine the faith of a few truth seekers. But then such tests can also be beneficial as a means of strengthening faith. Again, true, the clever doubters' misrepresentations of those truths may dissuade a few seekers from following the spiritual path. But if a seeker really is sincere, he will recognize the truth eventually because it resonates with his own being. No, the greatest problem accrues to the shallow doubter himself. To give him an opportunity to affirm his ignorance might only estrange him even more from the truth, delaying the time when he will turn, as all people must, eventually, to the light. Thus the scriptures advise, not secrecy, but discretion in sharing the truth. Jesus Christ says in the Gospel of St. Matthew, chapter 7, "Give not that which is holy unto dogs, neither cast ye your pearls before swine, lest they trample them under their feet, and turn again and rend you." And Sri Krishna says in the 18th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, "Never speak of these truths to one who is without self-control or devotion, who renders no service, who does not care to hear, or who speaks ill of me. Thus, through Holy Scripture, God has spoken to mankind.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
How is everybody today?
Awake and ready.
Yay. Thank you for coming this morning. It's our joy to share with everyone. We'd like to begin with a reading from Whispers from Eternity. This is Yogananda's book of prayer demands and poems. And carrying from our theme from last week, Hope for a Better World, this is number 33, Demand to Travel by the One Highway of Realization. Our one Father, we are traveling by many true paths toward thy one abode of light. Show us the one highway of common realization where all bypaths of theological beliefs meet. Make us feel that the diverse religions are branches of thy one tree of truth. Bless us that we enjoy the intuition-tested, ripe, luscious fruits of self-knowledge hanging from the many branches of true scriptural teachings. In thy one temple of silence, we all sing to thee a chorus of many-voiced religions. Teach us to chant in harmony with thy love's manifold expressions, that our chorus of souls rouse thee to break thy vow of cosmic silence and lift us unto thy lap of universal, immortal understanding. Peace. Amen. So what a wonderful affirmation to have this morning on concentration, especially after the weekend that we had last week. And we want to thank everyone who participated in last week's event, your prayers, your support, whether you played a big part, a small part, whatever, it doesn't matter. I love the saying, there's no big part. And then there's that other wonderful Ananda saying, many hands truly make a miracle. It took a lot of concentrated energy and inspiration to create the weekend. In fact, Joe Tish, at one of his talks, he mentioned when you put on a big event like that, it's so little about the little event. It's something like 20%, he may have said. The rest of it, the 80% or a large part, is about all the preparation. It's about the inspiration, the energy, the cooperation, the friendship, all of that that goes into creating such a beautiful event. So thank you all for your participation in it. And we can apply that same concentration to our day-to-day life in anything that we're doing. Again, no matter how small, how large, how inspiring or not inspiring. And of course, on the spiritual path too. A Sunday school teacher was asking her class, she said, if I sold my house, if I sold my car, if I had a big garage sale, and I gave all the money I earned from those things to the church, would I get into heaven? And the little kids yell, no. And then she said, well, what if I mowed the lawn at the church and I kept it neat and tidy and I served there all the time? Would I get into heaven? And the kids yell even louder, no. And then she says, well, then how do you get into heaven? And this little voice from the back of the room yelled, you gotta be dead. Yogananda said that the time for knowing God has come. He put an urgency on that message. And last week's message, Hope for a Better World, there's an obvious need. We don't have to go far to look, that there's a need to spread the message. There's a need to spread the universality of the teachings that we all share, not the division, not the things where we're different, but what's that universal truth? It's never been more evident. You could say that that is so important. And yet in our reading this morning, it talks about the dangers, right? And I wanted to just talk a little bit about what you could say are the pitfalls. First, just because we're ready and are on the path doesn't mean that somebody else is ready. And I was thinking of, and the reading alluded to that, we need to use some discretion or discrimination. I was remembering when I was first when I first encountered the spiritual path, I wasn't looking for a life overhaul. I just couldn't sleep. I was stressed out. I tried everything else possible. And someone said, well, you may want to try something like meditation. Back then, that word wasn't as common as it is now. I mean, that's all I wanted. I didn't want an overhaul again. I didn't want more. So really using that discretion, that discrimination, what is it that someone's looking for? Because then the next part is, we're always trying to convert our family and friends. I had this experience. I had a dear friend who really is responsible for getting me to Ananda, but he was so enthusiastic that when he found Ananda, I was new to the West Coast. I just moved out. I was fresh out of college. I was stressed out. I wasn't sleeping, all of that. He was convinced Ananda was going to be my answer. Well, I didn't know much about Ananda, and he invited us over for dinner one night, and this is when Ananda had a center in San Francisco. For those of you who know the city, up in the Pacific Heights, glorious view of the bay, and so we get there just in time for dinner. We walk in, and it was one large house. It was called an ashram. There were maybe 20, 30 people living there. They had one long table, and we're ushered in. We're a little bit late. They were waiting for us to come. We come in, everyone's sitting around the table, and they go, oh, great, you made it. Now we can sing the blessing. I go, sing the blessing? And, many of you who are part of Ananda, we sing this beautiful blessing before we eat. They sang the blessing. I looked up, and just like I'm looking back here, there's the pictures of the 5 masters. There were the pictures of the 5 masters. I looked up, and I said, I'm out of here. And my friend said, what? I said, I'm out of here. He goes, well, you haven't even eaten. You just got here. I go, this is more than I can handle. I'm out of here. So really remembering, tuning into where is that person? If we're not ready to hear it, we're just not ready. And I backed off. I dug in my heels. And despite I couldn't sleep, despite I was restless, I wasn't going to go there because it was just a little bit too much. And that's what the reading is just reminding us. Tune into where is the person? Where are you? Just because you're ready and you're enthusiastic, tune into where they are. And then do the best you can and probe and look, well, what is it that would be your next step on the path? We tend to also, another pitfall is we tend to dive in with the intellectual mind, especially on this path. We have so many wonderful books and teachings, and there's so much that we can get from the teachings, the principles. But really, there's something much deeper going on. For those of you who have read The New Path, it's the story of Swami Kriyananda's journey when he found his guru, Paramahansa Yogananda. And it was in his very first meeting, he meets Yogananda, and Yogananda asked Swami Kriyananda, he said, how did you like my book, Autobiography of a Yogi? This is a great spiritual classic that has touched many through many, many years. And Swami Kriyananda, who talks about in The New Path, he approached the path and all of life from his mind. He had a strong intellect. And he said, oh, sir, it was wonderful. And Yogananda answers back, he goes, it's because it has my vibrations in it. And Swami Kriyananda thought, he writes this so beautifully, vibrations? How can a book has vibrations? And then when he thought about it, not only did it share these deep spiritual teachings, but it helped you to have a deeper awareness, a deeper consciousness, another level. It brought you to another level of consciousness. So there's more going on. It's about vibration. That's what we're sharing. When I first moved to Ananda Village, so it took me about 5 or 6 years after that first time, walked into the center that Ananda had in San Francisco. I backed off extremely, and then I took it at my own pace. I took it a step at a time. And my first book was not The Autobiography of a Yogi, True Confessions, or even The New Path. It's a book now that's titled Expansive Marriage. Back then it was called How to Spiritualize Your Marriage. I was newly married and trying to figure out how to be in a relationship and bring in that spiritual aspect. And I got so much from it. And I thought, this is common sense to me. Wow, is this the way I would live in a relationship with my spouse, with others? What else is there going on? So then from that led to the other for me. And 5 years forward, I moved to Ananda Village. And then I was that new zealot, that new excited person. Oh, I just want to share the teachings. I want to talk about it all the time. I hope I can do that after I move to the village. Well, they asked me to go serve in town, Nevada City, which is about a half hour away. They asked me to work in a retail store. It was a women's apparel and gift item store. It was called Mountain Song. And they said, we want you to work there, but it's a retail setting, and you can't talk about the teachings. And I was like, what? that's no fair. I just moved here. I want to share this. I had no discretion. No, I was just, but no, we got, because people came all the way from Los Angeles up to this little shop at Christmas time. The little village became a little Victorian village. It was just beautiful. It was classic white steeple church, lovely in the gold rush country, extremely beautiful, but we couldn't talk about God. I was like, well, what can we? I mean, we didn't even have our books for sale in the shop. It was strictly women's apparel and gift items, and at Christmas it turned into a winter wonderland. But then as a staff, we got together because many of us were fellow devotees. We're like, we want to share this. We want to share this energy. And we reminded each other it's about that vibration. So we would start every day with a meditation. We'd start every day with a prayer. We had a little box in the back of the room that said healing prayers if you would like us to pray for someone you know. We took to heart that saying, be a secret agent for a Divine Mother. And we did have a photo of Yogananda at the cash register. Nobody could see it but us. And until we were ringing somebody up, then we would see it. And we had this little thing, ding, ding, whatever it was, when, I guess cash registers maybe are extinct now, I don't know. But, it would ring the bell and we would go, love God or share. And nobody could see that little picture unless you were there. So we would all run to ring the person out because we wanted to see that picture. And it was such a beautiful reminder of that. And you would think, here we are. This business was owned by Ananda. It's a gift item. It's women's apparel. What does that have to do with the spiritual path? But everything has to do with the spiritual path. It was a bridge for people. They could come in and see something beautiful. And they could feel the energy in the store that people working here were kind. People were kind to each other, to the customers, to the items there. So they felt when they purchased something, it was a little blessed item. Just like here, we've got the books on display, but we have a little gift item section. Why? Because it's that little bridge. And there's nothing that's not divine. And it's somebody, just about a month ago or two, we hired a new bookkeeper here. And she didn't know anything about Ananda, nothing, and she walks in for the interview, and she sees the boutique, and she sees this little statue that we had, because she bought it. It was this little cat meditating, and she gravitated right towards it. She goes, oh, can you save that for me? Because, she says, my daughter's a cat lover, and I think she's starting to meditate. Wouldn't this be perfect to give to her? I mean, we just don't know. Every little thing is divine. And Swami Kriyananda was a perfect example of that because he didn't limit anything. He came to bring this broader state of consciousness. He wrote books about different topics for different people. He wrote Education for Life. How do we raise the consciousness of children? He wrote about money magnetism, how to attract what we need when we need it. Art of supportive leadership, how to be better leaders in this world. Hope for a better world. Sometimes barely in these books he even mentioned God or Guru, because that's not what he was doing. He was trying to lift globally the consciousness of mankind. And so it's a beautiful reminder this morning, and lovely to have concentration focused or connected to our topic, because the more that we can concentrate, the more that we could go deeper in our own spiritual practices, the more we'll know, we'll intuitively know, we'll have the inner wisdom, the inner guidance to know how to share appropriately, how to share, how to tune into the other person and know what's the right thing to say. And even if we blow it, I love Yogananda's saying, a saint is a sinner who never gave up. We just do the best we can. We intuit. We tune in just the best we can. The rest is masters. The rest is Yogananda's. We're here so that we could share the teachings. But by that wonderful reminder, concentration, going deeper in our own practices, we can then really share the beauty of these teachings, and also knowing that there's such a need. Really, truly, the topic, Hope for a Better World. We want to continue this theme through this year into the next year because it's obvious why we want to do that. And so thank you all for being a part of last weekend, for being here today, and let's all be ever more perfect channels for Divine Mother's light and love into this world. Thank you all. And the second act.
Good morning, everyone. I will reiterate, thank you for taking time to be here and to share. There's just a simple thought about how we spend our time. Because just like where we spend our money, how we spend our consciousness and how we spend our time creates our reality and creates the reality around us. If we spend our money in a bar, the bar gets stronger and the realm of alcohol consumption becomes reinforced. And that becomes more a part of our reality and a larger part of the global reality. If we spend our time serving and caring for others, then and our funds in that same way, then that becomes strengthened in the world and in our own reality. And so when we come together, it changes the world. We had, as Gangamata mentioned, we had, and for those who don't know us, by the way, I am Nayaswami Daiva, and this is Nayaswami Gangamata. And I'm going to do a little segue for just a moment. We had the spiritual director from Palo Alto slated to come up in early November. And she would have shared the weekend with us, offered a class, and then done Sunday service with us. Well, something happened in Palo Alto, and it wasn't possible. So she asked us if we would come down and offer a program and give Sunday service. And we said, sure, we'd be happy to. And then she said, oh, by the way, we need your topic, your bios, and your write-up on your topic now, because we're going to press. And then she said, these are things we haven't addressed for a while. They were wonderful topics, but we thought about it. We thought, well, what would be meaningful? And we meditated on it. We talked with them a little bit. And we said, how about the using sadhana, which is spiritual practice, meditation, yoga postures, journaling, using sadhana, using service and using community to uplift consciousness, that's us, and change the world. And we worked on that topic, which was, again, the theme from last week and is the theme of what's needed so desperately in this world right now. So using sadhana, service, and community to uplift consciousness and change the world. And they said, oh, that sounds great. Let's go ahead and do that. And we said, yeah, that sounds great, because that's what we spend our life doing. And so we got it all anchored, and I wrote this really fun little content piece for it, promotional piece for it. And then last night I was meditating, and I got this cold sweat because I realized I don't have any idea what to say about this topic. It's the entire life that we live, and I don't know really what to say about it. It's so deep. It's so important. It's so pervasive. We referred to the event last week, and who all was there? You can raise your hand. Who all was at the Hope for a Better World weekend? Okay. Tell me if I'm missing something, but my experience in asking people after it was over, how was it? Everybody felt transformed. Everybody felt uplifted. Is that true? Yeah, there was some magic there. There was some feeling of this is what life can be like. This is how we should be living. And then the question, of course, is why don't we live like this all the time? And it's because we have to grow into that level of energy, that level of consciousness, that ability to hold a state of consciousness that remarkable. And it's not easy to do in a world that doesn't reinforce it. We have a subsequent invitation came this week, and it was from somebody who had been at that event and was so touched by the music. They were just deeply touched by the beauty and power of the choir. In fact, the Sufi man who presented, he said, when he stood up to talk, he said, the choir is sensational. He said, when I look into the faces of the people in the choir, I'm looking into the face of God. These are angels that are here. So somebody had been there, was deeply touched by the music at that level. There's a protest in Portland coming up in the next week or two. And they asked, and it's against, it's a protest against the divisive actions and attitudes that are trying to establish themselves in this world as the reality. And she said, would you please come and sing? And all the rest of the activities and all the rest of the energy there is against. And Swami Kriyananda spoke very strongly. He said, I personally am never against anything. I'm always for something. And so instead of being against the divisive energies, which just creates what? More divisiveness, let's be for unity. Let's be for harmony. Let's be for peace. Let's come together and celebrate that and create experiences and environments where that's the reality. Then we're not bound by this other energy, and the other energy doesn't have any traction with us. So the thought was, we would love to have gone, but it's not our milieu. And we would have gone anyway, I think, because it's important to serve wherever there's an opening. Christ, when he walked the earth, he didn't just go where people were already saintly. He went where there was need. He went where there was troubled hearts, and he brought into that environment an uplifted consciousness. The topic today is about concentration, and the power, as Gangamata noted, the power of last weekend was in the concentrated energy of so many people coming together for something. Was it at the highest level possible? No. The highest level possible would have been if we'd all sat down and meditated with profound concentration. But it was what we could do. And it included music. It included speakers with inspiration. It included practice. It included many, many, many different elements. There's Paramahansa Yogananda used to talk about levels of development, levels of awakening. And he cautioned, he told a story about what happens, in fact, he told many stories about what happens when we overreach, when we try and learn things that are beyond our capacity to implement them. And one of the things that he said is, do you know, and Christ said it too, every true teacher has said it, that if whatever you think, you have the power to manifest if you think it with absolute concentration. Okay? Anybody ever see the movie The Secret or read the book The Secret? That's what they're talking about, is the power of concentration to magnetize to you whatever it is that you're focused on. It's a cosmic law. It's just what happens. But if we don't develop other things first, we end up in trouble. And Yogananda told the story of the man who developed the power of concentration because he wanted to manifest his dreams, he wanted his gold, he wanted his money, he wanted his houses, he wanted his stuff. But he hadn't purified his heart first. And he still had divisiveness and negativity and fear and anxiety. And so one day he heard that there was a tiger in the neighborhood. This is in India. There was a tiger in the area. And he thought, oh my God, if I run into that tiger, if something happens, if I would run into that tiger and he would eat me, I'd lose all these things. And the more he thought about it, the more concerned he became, and the more concerned he became, the more he dwelt on, with concentration, the tiger eating him. Until finally, that's exactly what happened. He was asleep in his bedroom, and the window opened, and the tiger jumped in the window and dragged him off and stuff. And the point that Yogananda was making is, this is a power, but the power, these powers that are available, that are a byproduct of spiritual practice, if you haven't done the spiritual practice for the right reasons, for kindness, for joy, for a pure heart, for connection to life itself, to expand yourself. If it's about ego, it always backfires. So what he taught first, let's start to learn what the goal of life is, how to be in a proper relationship with life, how fulfillment really happens. And then, as we develop our concentration, what we start to magnetize toward us is the harmony and the peace and the joy and the kindness and the love that this world, that we ourselves so desperately need, and also this world so desperately needs. We are, every year we do an end of a year celebration of community at Ananda Center at Laurelwood. We do a retreat. And Usually we reach out to the greater area to invite people from outside to come and celebrate and explore community. This year, and I'm speaking to all of you as insiders, you're here, we're talking to us as friends and family, but this year what we're going to do is have an internal retreat, and we really invite everybody here who feels any connection to Hope for a Better World and what happened that weekend to come and join on Labor Day weekend out there. Come and stay if you can. We're going to make it extraordinarily affordable. We'll all be serving each other. We'll be cooking the food together and cleaning up together and meditating together and doing all the other things. But the point of the weekend is to take a look forward into the crystal ball of the future, if you will, and to ask the question, how can we take what we started that weekend, last weekend, and all the build up to it, how can we take that energy and make it more than just a magical moment in the midst of all the turmoil that's going on? How can we make it a movement of energy that continues to play out and continues to offset the negativity and the darkness of these times? How can we live together? How can we share and invite others into an increasing circle of people who are committed to more harmony in this world and spending their time, whether it's farming and raising cattle or building buildings or running a school or whatever it is that's in front of you. How can we use our time and our consciousness, our sadhana, our service, and our community connections to build a world that's worth living in? Let's work for something. Let's use the power that we've been given. Let's purify our hearts so that as we grow in our spiritual understanding, as these teachings open up before us, we ourselves are ready to embrace them at the level they were intended. And we become increasingly pure and open to live in the light of God and to share that light with others. So again, thank you all for being here. Let's take a moment of quiet. Feel for the present.
Cloisters. We'll sing it through twice, and we invite you to join us the second time through if you feel free.